Now then, obviously, we love to tell your stories here on BBC Newcastle, and I love to hear them. Well, my next guest has set herself more of a challenge than most by actually coming into BBC Newcastle to talk to us live on the radio today. Lisa Nealan is from Northumberland, and she developed a stammer when she was just 8 years old. Now, as what happens with a lot of people, she obviously learnt to live with it, but it meant that it was putting huge restrictions on her life. She avoided social situations, she struggled at work, and even stopped getting the bus home so she wouldn't have to say where she lived. But now all of that has changed. Lisa went on an intensive speech course, which has completely changed her life, and I'm delighted to say that she's with me now this morning. And we have another special guest, your daughter Rachel. I didn't even know you were coming in. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you quite happy to talk on the air, Rachel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. It's no worries. It's just a natter, really. Very informal. Just a bit of a gossip. You can tell I'm good at gossiping because I've lost my voice at the minute from too much gossiping. Now, let's start, Lisa, with going back to, as a child, can you remember actually the time that the stammer happened and how did it manifest itself?
Yes. Well, Lisa Nealan, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. What it is was when I was about 8 years old, I had an accident, and the stammer can be brought on by trauma or shock. It can be hereditary as well. So with me, I spoke fine one day and then woke up with a stammer the next day.
That's astonishing, isn't it? And is that the way that it does happen, you know, in your experience and chatting to people? Is that the way that it happens a lot?
Yeah, it can happen loads of different ways. Like I say, some people are born with it. I've met siblings who have got stammers who have been on the same programme as me. But with mine, because I had spoke normally and then suddenly had a stammer, I can remember being fine one day and not the next. So
you can remember life being able to, you know, chat away, play with your mates, talk away, no problem. And then the accident. And was it literally sort of the day after or a few days after the accident?
I think it was very soon after. And what happened was I became very, very quiet, obviously, because when you're young, you worry about other children and bullying and so on. And some children can be cruel, so I became very sort of within myself, really.
And literally, was it as soon as you got out of bed that morning? I'm fascinated to know. Was it almost the moment that you tried to speak? Maybe you were asking for what you were going to have for breakfast, and the words just wouldn't come.
Well, it's a long time ago, but
not that long. You look very young.
I can't remember it being a big change that suddenly it came on, and it was a weird thing to get used to, and just to go from being quite chatty to very quiet and trying to hide it was quite a big thing for me, and I've hid it since March this year.
And not now. Definitely not
now.
I'm
I'm proud to say.
I'm wondering about your parents' reaction and people around you. You know, what did they think, and what was their immediate course of action for you at 8 years old when this happened?
Well, at the time, I suppose, when you're young, I was just really something that maybe they thought I would grow out of. I think I did go to a speech therapist a couple of times as a child, but nothing like what I've done this year. Yeah, friends at school did notice. I mean, there was a time at school where I helped another teacher, which made me late for a lesson. And when the teacher asked why I was late, the stammer obviously was bad, and the teacher mocked and the children all laughed. So,
the teacher mocked you?
Yeah, I mean, things are different now, and that would never happen now. But the whole class laughed, and I'll never forget it.
And that must surely have made things worse for you.
It did, because I was very down and obviously kept very isolated, so it was hard, really hard.
You had an overt stutter to begin with, and then it became a covert stutter. Now, I'm not understanding what that means, so can you explain to us? And Rachel, do you understand what that is?
No, not at all.
Right, listen to your mum. You've always got to listen to your mum anyway, but now super listen to her.
Well, overt stammerers, you would notice completely all the time. They would struggle with most words. You would see the facial tension there. It would be noticeable. Mm-hmm. With a covert stammer, you would use techniques and avoidances so that nobody knew you had a stammer. So you would change words around, you would replace words with words you would be able to say, you would avoid situations where you would need to say words you couldn't say. I could never say my name without stammering before March. Not once.
And yet you can now.
I can now.
You can now, Lisa Nealan. You can now, Lisa Nealan. I'm very proud to say it as well.
But as a child, you don't know those, you're not mature enough to swap words all the time in your head before you speak every time. So it's much harder to hide. As I grew older and I went through school and had interviews for jobs, I had to swap words to hide it because I was so ashamed of it.
Was that exhausting? Because I imagine that mentally that must be so tiring at the end of the day. You must have been exhausted.
Absolutely exhausting. And also every time the avoidances and the tricks don't work, it makes you feel so worthless. And it was a downer like most days. And a lot of friends didn't even know I had a stammer, really close friends. So to hide it for so long and then suddenly not have to hide it anymore is amazing.
What impact did it have on your working life?
A very big impact. My last employer, I went on a course and I remember we were put into tables of strangers from other companies and we had to introduce ourselves. And I remember making up a name and not being able, because I couldn't say my own. And it spoiled the whole course because I was there but under a false name and it wasn't me. So
you just couldn't even be your own person?
I couldn't say no. So I was there and I just made up, I can't even remember the name, but it was just a name from the top of my head.
I mean, it's interesting because I'm sure people listening to the show right now will think it's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed about. Why would you be embarrassed or ashamed by having a stutter? And yet you were to the point that you hid it. Why did you feel it was... Obviously, it can give a lot of problems when it comes to communication, but Why did you feel that sense of shame and embarrassment?
I think all people with stammers probably feel that sense of worthlessness and shame. I think people take it for granted to speak their own name, to say their own name, and when you can't, it's a horrible feeling that something as simple as a name can make you feel like that, but it does. And obviously, as well, the reaction of other people is always, and this course has learnt me that actually people's reactions aren't what I've perceived for 30 years.
We do spend an awful lot of time making up in our minds what other people are thinking about us.
Exactly.
Oh, I do it all the time. I mean, I'm sure people listening do it as well. Rachel, when you hear your mum talking like that, and it's very emotional to hear her talking like that about what she went through, how does that make you feel as her daughter?
Very, very proud, yeah. I've definitely noticed a difference in herself as a person. Like, her confidence is just totally boosted. And before, she wouldn't really go into places or have much confidence at all, but now, I mean, she's joined loads of different things she wouldn't join before.
What about when you had friends come to play, come over for tea and things? Did they know that your mum had a stammer? Did you ever talk about it? Did they talk about it?
I don't think anyone really noticed because she was swapping words all the time, so it's a word she would stammer on, she wouldn't say, so no one really knew about it. Because when I told my friends about going on the course, they were like, well, why is she going on it? And I was like, because she has a stammer, but they didn't notice it.
I think just talking to you now, obviously you've done your course, but I wouldn't notice that. I know that this is a massive, massive challenge for you. I know it is. Before we came on air, I said you'd be fine anyway. The BBC Newcastle audience are lovely. You've got as much time as you want. Take as much time as you want, but you wouldn't notice. You seem so confident and bright and bubbly.
No.
I just wonder. We're going to talk about the course in a moment. I'm going to play Ollie Murs very shortly, and we'll talk about the course afterwards. But I wonder if there was a catalyst, a moment, because you've had it since you were 8. 30 years, you've coped with it, you've lived with it, you know, the lows, and there have been an awful lot of lows, but I wonder what that catalyst was, that moment where you thought, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Well, there's been a few. The ones that stand out for me is I took Rachel first of all to this was one of the points that I thought I must do it, to a drive-through, and normally I've always ordered something I could say for me, but when you're ordering for someone else, you have to say what they want. And
you can't get her.
It was a real bad stammering moment for me, and Rachel was getting older and noticing it more. And she said, "Ma'am, that was a really, you've really got a bad stammer, haven't you?" And I said, "Yes, I have, but I think I'm going to need to do something about it." And just going to hospital appointments, I was more worried about saying my name at the reception than what I was there for. And I thought, this can't go on. And this is not that long ago where I was having to take appointment letters and hand them over to the lady to show my name. And if they kept it and, thinking you didn't need it anymore and binned it, I would panic already about the next appointment.
So the thing is, you do have to say your name a lot, don't you?
You do, and me and Rachel have been on our own for a while now, and I had nobody to ring the bank, book appointments, little things that you take for granted, and I had to do it myself.
Well, we're going to find out how she's made this massive change very shortly on BBC Newcastle. If you've just joined me, I'm chatting with Lisa Nealan and her daughter Rachel. She's had a stammer since she was just 8 years old, and her ultimate challenge was to come on BBC Newcastle and talk. Look at that. We've already talked for 10 minutes. You're doing brilliant. Ollie Murs and Troublemaker on BBC Newcastle. It's radio for the North East. Thank you so much for your company today. It's Anna Foster here until midday. Great music on the way from Take That. Also the 3 Degrees as well. Some of a lovely chat this morning. I love hearing your stories, and it's amazing to talk to Lisa Nealan. She's had a stammer since she was 8 years old, suffered terribly and missed out on a lot. However, after suffering for 30 years, her life has changed. I'm also with her daughter Rachel, and it's great that Rachel's coming in because she's got possibly one of the most important days of her life today, so she's giving us some very important time. What's happening today, Rachel? Prom, right. We'll find out about the dress and whether you've had to remortgage or not in a bit, Lisa. Lisa, just very quickly before we go on to the course and the techniques that were used, did you feel that you missed out on an awful lot in terms of social situations and fun and events and things?
Definitely. Not just with work. I mean, work has been a massive thing because I watched people progress and do things that I knew I could do, but that I just didn't have the confidence and the speech to do.
I've got a text in here from Nikki who just says, I do have a speech problem. I'm a mature adult, but I still get ridiculed. People accuse me of being drunk. A disability group does not give me time to explain myself, and this, of course, frustrates me even more. Well, Nikki, I think what Lisa's going to tell us now might make you feel better. So how did you find the course?
Well, what happened was I work for Northumbrian Water, who have a wellbeing scheme, and they really care for their staff. I feel lucky to work for them. And they have road shows every year for staff to go and see what everybody's doing within the company. And I watched a wellbeing video by a colleague, Andy, who had been on the McGuire Programme, and Northumbrian Water was brilliant and had funded him to go on this programme, and he spoke about his stammer and how the programme has helped him. And after that roadshow, I had seen the McGuire Programme on documentaries on Channel 4 as well, with Musharraf from Educating Yorkshire,
yeah, of course,
and Gareth Gates, obviously. So I did know a little bit about the programme beforehand, but like I say, I listened to the video by Andy, and then I approached my manager in HR, and they were so supportive. So
I know a lot of people have seen the King's Speech, and a lot of people have seen Educating Yorkshire as well, and the teacher made the kids sing quite a lot, and obviously in the King's Speech...
Don't ask me to sing, you'll have no listeners.
I might. And in the King's Speech, obviously there was singing as well, and it was so emotional to watch, so incredible. So did you have to sing, or what was the idea behind the course, and how has it helped you?
No, I definitely didn't have to sing, which was a good thing. The course is basically... the McGuire Programme teaches you to speak using costal breathing, so breathing from your diaphragm and taking your words on the top of the breath
Okay, so you take your breath in.
So you take a big breath and you pause quite often. So it's a case of not saying too many words in one breath.
Is it a time thing? Is it giving yourself time to get the words out? Or is a stammer not really just about time?
Well, it helps the stammer by formulating in your mind what you're going to say. And by slowing down and taking pauses and resisting time pressure, it helps you formulate what you're going to say.
I mean, the thing is, I'm quite interested to know is it that you literally don't know what you're going to say, or more that the words just will not come out? Because I imagine that you know what you want to say, it's just that they're not coming out.
I think it was certain sounds and certain words.
Yeah.
W words I could never say, or sounds, S, or stammer. So on words that I would have difficulty, because the programme isn't a cure. There's no cure for a stammer. What it does is it learns you how to be in more control of the speech, and with using the techniques so if I struggled on, say, Widrington, which is where we are from, which I could never say on a bus or a train.
So you can say your name
for the next stop.
Oh,
now I would say Widrington and sort of either do that or a block release, which is what they call it. So Widrington, and it would help me to get the word out rather than the facial tension and all, or even avoiding it altogether.
That's quite interesting that you literally paid almost every day for another stop.
Well, I mean, I drive, but when I first got my job at Gosforth, I used to get the bus every day, and what I would have to do is pay to go to Amble, which would be the next stop.
Because it's easier to say than...
Because I could say Amble. Yeah. But I would still get off at my stop. Yeah. But I would always pay for an extra, and the same with the train.
So you're richer now you've done this course as well. And Rachel, did you see her out and about practising and you know, sort of, I suppose, putting the course into action?
Yeah, definitely. When she came back, it was a bit weird to get used to, because definitely much different, because you couldn't really notice it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So when she came back from the course, she was speaking very, very different with all the breathing techniques. So yeah, it was, but as she's got on, it seemed to went, and now she's just talking normally again.
It's very mechanical when you first come off the course, and they say that will happen, but as the time gets on, it becomes less mechanical, and the breathing becomes less noticeable.
See, I don't think it does sound mechanical. I mean, I can hear you breathing. Yeah. You know, I'd be lying if I said I couldn't hear. Yeah. I can hear that, but I can hear that the words are coming out clearly. And actually, you know, just to paint a picture for the radio here, if we can put a picture on Facebook, we will. But Lisa is, you know, very relaxed, very, you know, bright face, relaxed and bubbly. You don't look stressed at being on live radio at all.
I'm not now, because they've learnt me how to control it. I'm more in control of it.
Can I ask you a question from point of view of somebody who hasn't got a stammer, who's chatting to somebody who has got a stammer? I think very often you're not sure how to react, in that sometimes if somebody's really struggling to get a word, you might find yourself finishing off that sentence. And I had a very good friend at university who had a stammer, and I used to think, no, don't finish your sentences off. So is it really that we shouldn't do that? We should just give you time and space to do it?
I think that people shouldn't, because sometimes it can make a stammerer feel even worse. Yeah. That someone else is having to finish their sentence. So, but there's so little of the population that have stammers that I don't think any stammerer would blame anybody for finishing their sentence, because nobody really knows how to react. You know, I mean, on the programme, we had to go out on the last couple of days. It's a 4-day intensive course, and we were asked to speak to 100 strangers in Newcastle. And I had to say I was on a speech course. Could I introduce myself to them? And for someone who had hid it for so long, it was quite emotional. And Jordan, who was my coach going around Newcastle with me, I mean, I was just in tears for the first 10 or 20 contacts that we made, because I couldn't believe I was admitting to people, strangers on the street, that I had a stammer. But the reaction was amazing.
I want to hear about the other changes in your life. Do you think we can just take the news and then come back to Lisa? Is that all right? Yes, I've had the thumbs up from Laura. She's been practically crying listening to this because it's just so emotional to hear such a change. Are you all right, Lisa, for another 10 minutes?
Definitely.
If that's okay, right. So we're going to take the news, we'll play you some Tina Turner, and then we'll come back to Lisa. I want to find about what things you've done which you couldn't have done, maybe relationships, and just see how much your life has changed. Tina Turner and the best on BBC Newcastle Radio for the North East. We've got Take That on the way and also the 3 Degrees as well. So if you have just joined us, my guest today is Lisa Nealan. Lisa has suffered from a stammer since the age of 8 years old. She's missed out on so much. It's caused her so many problems at work, in social situations, just living her life, and it's been exhausting. However, her life has completely changed. She's taken on a programme. She's learnt costal breathing, is that right?
That's right.
All the technical terms. I'm also joined by her daughter Rachel as well, and we've had some lovely texts coming in about your story actually, Lisa. Sitting in the office at work, listening in tears to Lisa's story. What a brave, inspiring lady she is. That's Erica in Sunderland.
Oh, thank you so much.
Eileen says, Anna, I was in tears listening to Lisa talk about speaking to 100 people. Well done to her. She's so brave to go on the radio. Well done. Big pat on the back. So.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
So that was one of the challenges that you had to do on the course, was to just literally go and introduce yourself to strangers.
Yes, that was the very end. It was a 4-day intensive course. That was at the very end. So that was on the Saturday. We had to go out into Newcastle and speak to 100, minimum of 100 people. I think it was 102 in the time that we got. And the reaction was brilliant. It wasn't as I would have expected. There was a couple of busy shoppers, and the coach said, that isn't you and your stammer, that's just, they're in a rush.
That's because they think that you're going to try and sell them or get them for charity. They're trying to get that signature for charity.
But most actually were really lovely. They had heard about the programme, some of them. And after we hit the 100, we had to all gather on Northumberland Street. And there was a big banner up saying the McGuire Programme and a soapbox. And we took it in turns to get up on the soapbox in the middle of Northumberland Street and speak.
What subject did you talk about?
Well, it was just a challenge to speak in public. Yeah. So I introduced myself and I said I'd been on the McGuire Programme and it had really changed things for me, and I would have never spoke to quite a big crowd gathered. And they were fascinated, really, and, I was standing waiting to go up, and there was 2 ladies behind me, and they said, this is fantastic. And people were just standing, watching, and were quite interested, and I turned around and said, and I used 2 of them as 2 extra contacts. That's how I got the 102.
The ladies.
And I said, I'm going to go up next, and they were just fascinated.
And did you say your name?
I did. A few times, actually.
Good.
Because I could say it clearly then.
Yeah, if you just tuned into Radio Newcastle, Lisa was saying that one of the biggest challenges that she faces is saying her name. She even had to change her name in certain situations. So that's huge that you managed to do that.
Yeah.
How proud are you, Rachel, of your mum, and how's life changed just day to day?
I'm very, very proud, yes. It has definitely changed. She seems more confident in herself, and she seems to have want to improve herself more. So, big change.
Now, because not only have you changed your confidence levels in the way that you're speaking, but your appearance has changed.
Yeah, it has. I joined a boot camp with Elite Physique Transformations in Cramlington, and the guys have been absolutely wonderful, really supportive. I was honest from the start that I had a stammer, because like I said, the programme doesn't ever cure it. It's constant. You've got to work on it every day.
Would you never have done it before? Would you never have joined a gym?
I would never have joined a gym, and because the stammer got me down, that doesn't help your sort of well-being, and you don't really care about yourself much. So a gym would never have been something I would have ever thought about, not just for the speaking point of view, but I didn't care about myself enough.
And sometimes when you're low, I know some people don't eat when they're low, but some people do. I'm a stress
overeat.
Eater.
Yeah, exactly. Just anything, to make you feel better, don't you?
So you've lost 28 pounds.
I've lost 23 pound in 5 weeks with Elite.
You've done an interview on BBC Newcastle.
Yeah, I've joined a communications group I've become a wellbeing champion within Northumbrian Water as a thank you to them for sending me on this course.
And what about relationships? Is that too personal to ask?
No, it isn't. I'm single at the moment, but
she's single, she's blonde, she's got blue eyes, she's bubbly.
But it maybe would have stopped me ever thinking about it before.
But now would you think about it?
Yeah, I think I would, because I would have more confidence. I mean, it's been just me and Rachel, and we're really close and we do a lot of things together, so I haven't really thought about relationships. But yeah, it's something I think now I've got a bit more confidence and I really shrink a little bit more. I might have...
You're gorgeous now. And Rachel, going to prom tonight, is there a boyfriend?
No.
Good. Keep it that way. That's the way we like it. Exactly. Then nothing but bother, nothing but trouble. That might change tonight. What's the prom dress like? We have to find out.
It's white and pink. It was massive, but I took a few net out, so yeah.
And does she look beautiful, Mum?
She does. I mean, Rachel, I've always been so proud of Rachel, and that's why I wanted to do this, so that she could be proud maybe of me. And I think it doesn't matter if you've got something wrong with you, as long as you work on it, whether it be weight or, in my case, speech. I wanted Rachel to know that no matter what you had or what you struggled with, as long as you can be seen to doing something about it, that's the most important thing.
And what would you say to people listening who are suffering and who are, finding confidence levels low and they're missing out on life?
Well, you'll also find a lot of people don't have many friends or social networks. But with the McGuire Programme, you don't just do a 4-day course and leave. I'll be, a McGuire graduate for the rest of my life, and I've met some so inspiring people, amazing friends, and we all support each other.
So get out there and get help. And I know there are other programs as well. There's all sorts of things, but get out there and get help. Don't stay.
And please, if anybody out there wants more information, check out McGuireprogramme.com. And it'll be the best thing that you've ever done. And
we're going to chat to some speech therapists shortly as well about various different types of help that's available. But I think you can see that just by getting out there and tackling the problem head on, Lisa has faced a huge challenge, and she's been absolutely brilliant. You've been on BBC Newcastle, you've done a live radio interview, and you've been superb. Do you want to tell everybody that Take That's coming up next? Do you want to do that for me?
Enjoy this. It's Take That.
In 2 ticks' time. Rachel and Lisa, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
The BBC Trust is the governing body.